Welcome to the Millionaire Journey Podcast. The goal of this podcast is to guide and empower you on your journey towards financial independence. Here's your host, Glenn Yaney.
Today, my guest is Hannah Kesler with Money Multiplier. Welcome, Hannah.
Hello, Mr. Glenn. I'm so excited to be here and even more excited to talk about my favorite topic, money.
Oh, mine too, definitely. I over this weekend, I woke up at like 4 o'clock this morning, turned on YouTube, and it put into my feed. I didn't even look for it. Interview with you and your dad in your new condo a year ago,
Yeah.
and it was great to watch. And I kind of got the summary of you and your dad's relationship. It was great.
Yeah. Well, and especially too, it probably touches your heart. You being a
Yep.
hashtag girl dad,
Yep.
it's it's a special relationship.
Yeah, because really for me is that we went my 5-year-old went on a princess cruise this weekend, which was a little ridiculous, a little hesitant to send her, but my wife was it was one of her best friends having it, and it was like $100 a ticket, and I was like, I don't know if this is good, but I like to watch what people before me have done to take care of their kids, and I like to think that that was the kind of the main purpose of having you on, is because I always like to think of like how do I how do you not spoil your kids? How do you treat them? How to be entrepreneurs and stuff like that? And that was what I got out of your podcast with them.
Yes. And too, actually, and I can say this because being of the Gen Z mentality and that generation, oh my goodness, we have so many entitled young kids nowadays.
Yep.
That's the one thing that really strikes a chord with me. So hopefully just teaching them good habits, not just giving them things. Hey, you got to work for the things that you have. It's not free. Just getting that message across, I think is just very powerful right now too.
Definitely. So, what we to have a quick drop off of listeners, we'll talk about the background of IBC. I know that we talk about IBC probably once every 3 to 4 podcasts. But if you could just tell us a little bit about your story and how you got to where you're at.
Yeah. So grew up in the Kansas City area. So definitely a Chiefs fan. I'm a Kansas City Midwest girl by heart. But I moved down here to Florida, Daytona Beach in 2018. I kind of followed mom and dad down because dad is originally from Florida. And he's like, I am done with the cold. I'm going back home. So he moved down in 2017. And then I just quickly followed a year later because I'm like, hey, if you never leave your town that you grew up in, it's almost like never leaving the bedroom of your house. And if you hate it, then you can always go back home.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, I'll be a Floridian until the day that I graduate, what I like to say.
Yep.
So, but now live down here in Daytona Beach. I actually started my first policy becoming my own banker at the age of 18, because you got to be 18 in order to start a policy. And I'll tell you, back at that time, I was a waitress at Cracker Barrel. And I remember the day, it was my 18th birthday. I was working a shift. I was working the morning shift from 7 to 2. And dad comes and picks me up and he says, hey, we're going to go down to Commerce Bank and we're going to close your savings account and you're going to start your first policy $400 a month. Because back at that time, I was saving up about $100 a week, so $400 a month. And then I was like, oh my goodness, what am I doing starting this stupid life insurance policy? Okay, dad, sure, right?
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, the best thing that I've ever done up to this point, I'm actually in underwriting for my 8th policy right now. And it's just, I eat, live, and breathe this stuff. So started my own banking business when I was 18 and then fell in love with real estate and investing and became a millionaire by the time I was 24. So
Wow.
short, free flow story.
A millionaire before you're 24. All right. So, how did you become a millionaire before you were 24?
Yes. So for the parents that are listening, one of the things that my dad did for us is he ingrained in us that your money is nothing more than just a means of exchange. And here in the Kesler family, what we call our dollars, there are little green men. And the objective is you go put your little green men to work for you, create an army of green men that are out there working. So then you no longer have to go out and work for it. I can go sit my butt on the boat on a Wednesday afternoon if I please, right?
Yeah.
So dad actually taught us, he says, hey kids, instead of just having your money inside of a savings account or just sitting inside the policy, what you should do is give me your money. Give me your money. I'll pay you 10% interest on it. And I'll pay you that interest checks every single month. And so that was just the opening step to learning how to really go put my money to work for me. But then you know how dad is. Dad's a lender in real estate. So what he would do is take my money, pay me 10%, and then go out there, give it to other borrowers, making no less than 15%, right? So
Yeah.
he's kind of even making a spread on it.
Yeah.
But that's what taught me is the lending game, and that's why I really love private lending in real estate. And so once I expanded my wings and I got bigger and I was like, "Dad, I can't just rely on you all the time. I gotta go out there," and pardon my French, I call it getting off the nipple. I gotta go and do other things. So then I started, getting in contact with other borrowers within real estate because I would be traveling around teaching on stages about this concept, the infinite banking concept, and most of the time they're real estate conferences, so I would just sit in there and I'd just listen to all the people, network, and meet those individuals, and then to really expand my, portfolio when it comes to lending.
Yeah, that's awesome because one thing I've been researching the IBC process for a while, and I could tell you I knew about it probably 10 years before I actually pulled the trigger. And something always didn't sit with me. Because the way I found out about it, I would hear about it on like a podcast, and then I would go to like a local insurance agent, and then they would show me some layout of it, and or whatever it's called, the
The illustration.
illustration. Yeah, and it was like breaking even around year 12, and I was just like, "What am I going to do for 12 years?" Is what I thought to myself, and they would always be like, "Oh, I know IBC, and I do it also." So then it just like I would like want to do it, and then I would find out, and it would be like I'd forget about it for like a year or so, and
Mhm,
then I'd hear somebody else talk about it, and then I'd start getting into it. But it really didn't strike me until I actually found people that are successfully using their IBC to be able to. And also, I had two mentors. Two mentors don't sell insurance. One has a whole life, and then one has a whole life policy, and then the other one has was going through a major surgery, but he was further along. Like he was about 65 years old, and I asked him. I said, "Do you think I should get this whole life insurance thing and like IBC?" And the one he was very sophisticated investor. He said everyone should have a little bit of it, no matter what. And he said, no matter what happens, he's like, there'll always be something left for your kids if something were to happen. And then the
mhm.
other guy who told me before not to get it, he actually told me later that I should. Just because I think of his situation, he was going into surgery, he didn't know like what was going to happen. And then that same year, whenever I actually did get my policy, I actually had two or three people die, not too close to me, but they were close enough to see what actually happened, the aftermath of literally, unfortunately, leaving your family with no money, and then changing the other people around you's lives because they were kind of relying on you, and they had nowhere to go. And I kind of learned then that even no matter how lavish or how good, not lavish, but like how many assets I have, there's no way to really prepare for something like that. So
Yeah.
that was kind of what got me into the IBC thing. And then I actually found really good practitioners, and it kind of started there. And they were using it also. It wasn't like just somebody selling it. That was the other thing.
Yeah, yeah. And Glenn, I love that you start there with this conversation because sometimes as being IBC practitioners, we can really downplay the death benefit on these policies, but that is a big crucial part to this of building generational wealth
Yep.
is that it's not an if this happens, it's a when it
Yep.
happens. When that time happens, you want to make sure your family's protected because Glenn, I'll just tell you, last week I had a client pass away. This is my second ever death claim that
Mm,
has been processed. And this gentleman, he was young. He's 61 years old, and it
mm.
was unexpected. And, the wife calls me just totally devastated. And I get it. There's nothing that I can say or do at this time. But the best thing that I know is that I'm the one who shows up with a check, a tax-free lump sum check, so that she can go and just grieve, go take time off. You need that time because most of the people, like the house people, the car people, they're the ones that are still knocking at the door saying, "Hey, we don't care what's going on in your life. We've got to make sure that we're getting our payments from
Yep.
you." I'm the one who gets to show up and say, "Hey, pay off the house, pay off the car. Just take this time for yourself and then let's get into this new chapter."
Yeah. Me and my wife were talking about that today or this weekend, actually. We were talking about a house, and I said, I don't know if I'd ever pay off the house. She's like, but what if something happens to you? I was like, well, there's going to be a very big check.
That we can do something with.
Yeah, you'll be able to figure it out with the check, hopefully. If you can't, I don't know what to tell you. That's it.
Or knowing Glenn, "Hey, honey, go buy more mobile home parts and have
Yeah,
that cash flow pay for the house."
yeah. hopefully, yeah, she might not have to do that. But I told her, always preparing for, it's just like financial freedom. I focus on time freedom now. It's mainly how do I figure out how to have less of me. Like when I'm going, with work, it's like if the decision has to be made by me, why is it? And let's figure out why, and that's been my 2025 mantra is like, just try to, we have 650 units and it's kind of like, it can't all rely on me and it won't grow if it does rely on me is what happens. But
Yep, yep. That follows the philosophy of the 10x is easier than 2x.
yeah, exactly.
That book, Who, Not How,
Yep,
completely changed my whole viewpoint on how I run the business. So I agree with
exactly.
you.
Yeah. So let's talk about really just your background and really like, so you started getting into real estate investing and then you became, I guess, did you mainly do it through real estate investing or was it through private lending?
Yeah, lending mostly.
Hmm.
So I started getting into real estate when I was 20. I bought my first house actually when I was 19. That was the house that I moved into coming down from Kansas City to Florida. And get this, Pops bought the house. So dad took a loan from his policies. I want to say the house at that time is like 150, and then we put about 30 into it for some renovations. So it was 180, like the total. And so he used the policies to buy the house, paid cash for it. However, I was the deed holder. So it was my house. Dad was just my mortgage holder. And so every month I would then pay him my monthly mortgage checks. So that was really the first piece of real estate that I bought and I was owning at the time. And during that time, then I started to expand outside of dad, doing more of the lending. And that's really where I started. Then I kind of got into the notes world. And then from notes, now is really the year. And I've actually was talking about this in my new book, The Single Millionaire Chick. Now is the year where I would like to buy more assets, more real estate, hard real estate, instead of just owning those notes
Yeah.
with some of these lenders that I'm working with, or excuse me, borrowers. So this year is for the buying year, and this year is also mastering the tax code game because I told dad this. I said, Dad, you did so great at teaching us about money and how to keep the money in motion. But, sir, let me tell you, you did not teach us a single thing about taxes. I remember with that first time that I got the IRS bill,
Yeah.
I literally cried.
Yeah. That's always been that's a good thing about mobile home parks is that they're very tax favorable when it comes to depreciation. But so you're able to, what I have certain investors is some of them like to lend for the yield, get a higher yield. You might not get, generally our equity guys are around 8 or 9%. And then the 15% or the 12 to 15% investors are, taxed at it's ordinary income. We're not taxed, we're not CPAs, but please, check for yourself. But what I like to do is have a blend. So you have equity on one side to offset the higher, uh, the higher interest loans that you're getting paid. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that's really what I'm trying to get into because I've explored if there's something else out there. Are you familiar with, like, the 1041 trust structure?
I feel like go ahead and tell us.
So it's just this is what, like, the Gates and the Trumps of the world are doing. Yeah, they have these very large foundations, and yeah, they could be nice people wanting to donate at the end of the year, but hey, there's maybe a reason why they have this structure in place and why they got these foundations, and it's really to offset the taxes there. So, essentially what I'm doing is I have my LLC, and my LLC is where I get paid all of my main active income through. So from the LLC trickles down to my business trust. The business trust is the one that does all of my investments, my lending out of. And then from the business trust, it trickles down to the family trust. The family trust is what holds all of my personal assets, the car, the van, the houses. And then from there, then it trickles down to the foundation. And what you need to do is donate at least, is it 5 or 10%? I'm actually meeting with my tax professional today. I want to say it's at least 5%. Don't quote me on this. I'm not a tax professional. Please go talk to your CPAs. But from the foundation, if you donate at least 5% from there, then you satisfied your tax liability within this trust structure. Now, given I still take owner distributions out of my LLC, and that pays for, I call it my food, fun, and fashion, all of the fun stuff. So I still pay my regular taxes over there, but this right here, the structure is minimizing the tax liability. But there's just I'll be real, I actually had to fire my original tax professional because he was telling me details almost like in self-dealing rules. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't think you can do that. And then diving in deeper into it, you can't. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't want to have a target on my back from the IRS. I'm just trying to pay what I rightfully owe. And if there's legal ways that I can use and exercise some of the tax code in these entities, I'm going to do it. So still in a learning process with all of the 1041 stuff, but that is minimizing it, but then also buying more of the real estate with the depreciation from there.
Hey guys, if you want to learn more about our deals we're investing in, go to our website and sign up for our free ebook, 10 Reasons Mobile Home Parks Outperform Other Real Estate Investments. We won't spam you. We'll just keep you updated on the podcast and the deals we're working on. Now, back to the show. Yeah, and I love the part, because it's very overlooked, is the part where you talked about you have to take out the parts where you spending and all this stuff because that's a taxable income. So I've been thinking about this a lot. It's there's a Nelson Nash line that I looked up today, and I don't know. It's where luxuries become necessities or something like that.
Parkinson's law.
Parkinson's law. Yes, and it's like been repeating in myself, because when I left my job, my W-2, I was making about $5,000 a month between being on the payroll and then passive income. And then over time, that income's grown, and now I live on $10,000 a month. Mm-hmm. And I think to myself, it's like, does it ever end? It's like, and now I'm looking at houses. Not that I'm going to buy anything anytime soon, but I'm looking at these ridiculous houses close by, and I'm like, Glenn, this is how it starts. It's like, it's never good enough. And the thing I like about the IBC way of doing things is that it kind of holds you accountable. Like, you're like, if I pull this money out, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to go spend it on something you don't need? Or are you taking it and investing it? And then over time it builds. And I think that's when it's almost like it's once you get the hang of it, or get the understanding of it, you actually build out your own retirement without even trying, because you realize they're like, I'm taking this money that's earning me 4 or 5% or whatever the number is to borrow it. And now I'm going to go hopefully invest it for more money. Or if I'm going to go spend it on luxury stuff, then I'm going to actually be having to pay this policy back.
Yes.
So it creates a whole mentality behind it. And I was telling you that beforehand. That's like, it's not even just the life insurance aspect. It's the mentality of the whole cult thing that we're a part of,
That's right. That's right. That's so funny, because my friends actually say, it's almost like a cult.
Yeah, it's okay.
I get what they're saying, but I'm like, y'all, if you really got the stuff, I'll even say, like, this past weekend, I'm a part of a women's book club. We call it the Boss Babes Book Club.
Nice.
And quarter, all of my girlfriends, we get together. So this weekend was at my house, and actually my good friend Lori, she says, Hannah, you know what I've noticed about you? You have wealth, but you act out of a poor girl mentality. And I was like, that is the nicest compliment I have ever received, because I did pick that up from my father too. Because I'll tell you, coming from the two backgrounds of mama being old money, dad being new money, dad is like, hey, foot on the pedal, gas all the way going, because you never know when this stuff is going to stop. And we even call him an extreme couponer. Yeah, Dad, you can go and afford to eat every single day, 3 meals a day, to go have steak dinners. But if you got a 2-for-1 at Arby's, that's where we're going to head to.
I love it.
Yeah.
Watching you and your dad talk back and forth was like awesome, because it was like, I could totally see like he's doing okay, financially. But I could tell that he's not going to be okay with spending like going out and spending unnecessarily, and really putting a purpose to the spending. And that's what I really, that's exactly how I feel too.
Yeah. And Glenn, I'll even just last comment on that one too, but that's where I really learned how to put the money to work for me. And then every month when I'm getting those interest checks back, that's what I then use to go and pay for my food, fun, and fashion. I really want my passive income to be paying for those material objects or whatnot. And then another thing that I started to do, especially with online shopping, and I'm a little fashionista. I love clothes, love going shoe shopping. Oh, that's a good time for me. But I will look at things on the internet, and I'll give myself about 24 to 48 hours. And if I'm still thinking about it, that's when I'll go and make the purchase.
Yeah. I mean, I did something really crazy. I bought this sleep bed, and it was like a $3,000 bed. I did not give me a $3,000 bed cover, but it apparently helps you sleep, cools you down at night and everything. And I didn't give myself that time, but I still love it. So it's all good.
Good.
But it was like one of those things where you're like, I should have probably waited, but if I would have waited, I probably wouldn't have bought it. So
Mhm.
So let's talk about, you said you're about to be on your eighth policy.
Mhm.
What does that even mean? Like, how do you get eight policies?
Yeah. So, and don't put the cart in front of the horse, y'all. Okay. Because sometimes people, when I'm having one on one strategy calls with folks, they will get deep into the future, which is great. You need to have a long term mentality here, but you will know when you're ready to start the second policy. So, where folks should really start right now is taking the dollars that they're just keeping for themselves. What I like to say, my savings bucket. I was forcing myself to save that $100 a week, 400 a month. That's why I started that first policy that way. But then as time went on, I left Cracker Barrel. I was actually working within the business with dad. Dad called me up and says, "Hey, I need help within the business. And if you're not going to help me, I'll go find someone else." And I was like, "Okay, well, what do you want me to do?" So I started taking applications and really being that application specialist, that middle woman between the client and the underwriter, helping them get approved for the policy. And thus, in a shift in my job and my career path, I was making more money. So it got to the point where I was like, "Hey, I'm doing this 400 a month, but I want to do more than this 400 a month," because my mentality shifted where I don't want to keep money being lazy down at the bank and these bankers are using my money and making a good living off of my money. So I want to shift that. So instead of doing 400 a month, I thought to myself, "Well, hey, I can do $800 a month." Well, you can't just go into an existing policy and quote unquote increase the premium. So at that time, I started a second policy, another 400 a month. So then I had a total of 800 monthly cash flow that was going towards the policy. And that's just what I do. Every month, I really dig in deep into my financials because I always follow this mentality. It doesn't matter how much you make, it only matters how much you keep. So I always look to see how much I'm keeping for myself. And I always want that number to keep going up and up. And so those dollars that I'm keeping, I'm pushing that cash flow towards more and more policies. So if I come to a time where I'm like, all right, my keeping money is increasing, but maybe I'm not ready to commit to more premium right now, what I'll do is I'll take that money, I'll pay extra paid up addition premiums into my policy, or I'll just simply go and pay back some policy loans to safely warehouse the money over there.
Yep.
But if I am on a trending, inclining scale that I'm keeping more and more and I can commit to more premium, that's when I start my additional policy.
Yeah. And really, it becomes, for me, when I started thinking about it, it started to become like, oh, I actually do have more money. Like at first, I thought I was stretching myself. And then I realized that, oh, what about all this money that I store over here, or the CapEx money, or uh, the insurance, the tax reserves, all the stuff that we, as real estate investors, you're going to have, you know. And then one thing that triggered me to really get into it was the capital requirements that lenders require. You know, so like we always, as a real estate investor, we always are putting out every dollar we can to put towards deals, and then it turns into, when you want to get out of the private lending world and go into the conventional banking, it turns to be a little bit more stricter on requirements. So that's really the main reason for me, is like, I was like, okay, what's my savings goal this year? Let's put as much in as I can. And then but for me, what I found is that I have you know, family, you know, my parents, you know, long story short, they lost a lot. They lost almost everything through the recession. And
Mm,
so they didn't have to get into retirement. My dad had some health issues just recently. And what I ended up doing is, my dad can't get health insurance or life insurance, but I now recently have decided that maybe I'll get a life insurance on my mom. And which is kind of weird to say, but at the same time, the reasoning behind it is that if I ever have to help them with whatever they got going on, it also offers some long-term care riders on there.
yeah.
uh, I will end up having to pay it anyways. So it's like, so I just figured, I was like, I'll just get a life insurance policy and just start funding her policy. And I kind of put it at, the way I've calculated it was, I'll probably have to one day, maybe, you don't know, they don't need it now, which is thankful, but their mortgage is about $1,500 a month. So I
Mhm.
figured it was $18,000 a year. So I said, well, let me just start the policy at $18,000 a year. And then in year, like, 10, it should be close to about, break even, because, of her age and everything. But it kind of makes you start thinking, where is this money going, and how is it flowing? And then, when, for her, she also feels like, she's also leaving something behind as well,
Yeah.
because before, she never thought she could get life insurance. So now it's like we're at a point where we're like, well, maybe you can. So then that's how this all started. So
Yeah. Hey, Glenn, that's a good point to bring up too, because I've been finding a real passion for convertible term
yep,
policies,
yep,
just maxing out yourself,
yep.
because I have people that actually went through the whole entire process, got approved for the policy, and then, I don't know, cold feet or didn't have the cash flow. They spent it on something else, right? And they're like, I just don't want to start this right now. Well, then they come back 6 months, a year later, 2 years, 3 years. Oh my gosh, I had a guy who come back 7 years later to start his policy, and he couldn't get approved. And it's like, hey, if you would have had this convertible term, just locking in that insurability, then you could have converted that into the whole life banking policy. So you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, yeah, that's the same thing for me. I tried to get as much as I could to later fill it up. Like I only, uh, so it's like I'll just be open book. It's like I got a $7 million policy, which sounds insane. That's a big number, and I'm like, wow. but in reality, it's like the term is 6 million, and then I got a million. It's like a million and a half of whole life in there, and
Mhm.
through funding the 1.5 million whole life policy, that policy in itself grows. So it turned into that 1.5 will grow to 5 million over time. The whole life portion of it. And then I still have the extra 6 million left to convert as my income grows. And that's kind of where you got get to 8 policies. As your income consistently grows, you're able to consistently add on more policies is what happens. So
Yeah, yeah. And I'll even make this comment too, because I actually picked this up it was in 2019, or was it 2021? It's one of those 2 because 2020 was COVID time. We didn't meet in person, but every year is the annual Nelson Nash think tank where all of us IBC practitioners get together. And Carlos Laura, so he co-authored in a few books with Nelson, Building Your Warehouse of Wealth, The Case for IBC. But he got up there and he was talking about how starting a policy is almost like starting a business from scratch. And if you knew by the 4th year that when you put in $1, or AKA your premium deposit, into this business or this policy, and your cash value now is growing by that same $1. So year 4 is your break even year. And then every year after that, your profits are greater and greater than the year prior. I mean, how many of these businesses do you want in your lifetime?
yep,
This is guaranteed, right? So that's kind of how I have that mentality around the policies too, is that if I can start these businesses and get them as old and matured as I possibly can, that's the ultimate goal there. Because then they're just cash flow machines.
yeah, I love that. Also with I like to think of it as I try to open the biggest bank I possibly can. Just like if I'm buying a piece of real estate, I mean, we'll buy a smaller piece of real estate, but generally we like to be around 20 to 30. But my first real estate piece of mobile home park was a 3 unit. Then I bought a 9 unit. Then we bought a 20. Then we bought a 30. Then 50. So it's like it kind of grows over time. And it's not like I'm going back later to go buy a 3 unit later. I'm like,
Yes.
let me go find a bigger one. So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I agree. And there was something else I was thinking of, but I love yes, I'm gonna try to go to one of those Nelson Nash. I always think it's this is what I was going to talk about. Is speaking of the Nelson Nash. So it seems like okay, this is my other argument. Maybe it's not even an argument. It's just the reality of like IBC is that anybody that's talking about is selling it. So I always think to myself, I could go get I had an insurance license at one point, and I quickly got out of it and got into real estate. It was when I was trying to do health insurance though. But what ended up but my thing was is like is it nobody? Okay, you can find people that are selling, like pushing 401ks. Like you go any personal finance podcast, they are pushing these 401ks. Are they selling 401ks? No, they're not managing any money. They're just talking about their experience with why you should put so much money in a 401k.
Mhm.
I subscribed to it and found out later that it was not the way to go. It's not how you get the financial and not an abundance financial freedom. And so long story short is that I think to myself is like, why can't I talk about IBC not selling IBC? Because it's something that I know is I'm like sold on it, and I can't think of a better place to start with. And yeah, so that's been like my ongoing thing is like, it's like, why am I even talking about it? It's like, it's because I love it. And it also is, I firmly believe it's going to change my life, and it fits my financial goals as growing and having liquidity and all the stuff that goes with it.
And the control too. And I'll
Control.
tell you, it's the best thing ever when people come up to me and they say, "Hey, Hannah, you don't know who I am, but I know you, and I've been watching your stuff. I'm actually a client of yours.
Yep.
I was working with this other money mentor on the team, but you and your dad completely changed my financial life." That's the best feeling in the world, and that's just the reward of why we do what we do and just delivering the information, because it's so backwards thinking, because a lot of people want to talk about products and, hey, go put your money over here. This is where the wealth is being made. Go buy that new crypto coin that's out there. But it's like, it really comes back to the fundamentals of knowing the mindset when it comes to your money, how you think about your money, because that's going to greatly impact how much money you have. And I've been going down this whole road too, where like I've just been noticing like some people sometimes even don't even feel like they're worthy of having money. And so then they get into other scarcity mindsets or spending, not looking at it because they're afraid of it. They just don't know where to start. So it's just coming back down. I always think like when I get up on stage or I do my podcast show, if I leave this and a 5-year-old cannot spew out what I just talked about, then I didn't do my job properly, because you need to really get simplified. I forgot who said it, but like, isn't simplicity the highest form of intelligence? Somebody said that. And I find it so true. If you can't recite it to somebody else in those simplistic terms, you ain't doing it right.
Yep. Yeah. So, where can people find you?
Yes. So folks can find me actually on my website, hannahkesler.com. Hannah spelled the same way, forwards and backwards, Kesler with one S. And then also on themoneymultiplier.com, the Money Multiplier podcast. And if it's okay with you, because actually, Glenn, I
Yep.
hopped on and I said, hey, your a podcast name, The Millionaire Journey. I have my book out, The Single Millionaire Chick. So if y'all want a copy of that, I will send you an ebook version of that if you just email me, hannah@themoneymultiplier.com.
Awesome. And one thing I would add, I know that it's like sometimes I talk to people off of my podcast and like, oh, you sound just like you do on the podcast. And I'm like, yeah, it's my personality. And I will say the same thing about Hannah is I've actually followed her a little bit on YouTube and seen a bunch of interviews with her, and she's very authentic. And I think if you're looking for, IBC policy, I think you'll be taken care of.
Oh, that's sweet, Glenn. I appreciate you. And hey, I'm going to say the same thing. I know all your listeners know this already, but there's a lot of value here and a lot of value add that's being created. So I know you just do your podcast show because, hey, you want to just hear, it's more so for your own benefit. You're like, hey,
Yeah.
I want this information, so I'm
Yeah.
going to bring you on. But seriously, people get a lot of value out of this. We got to keep doing and spreading the message that we are. So
D-
appreciate you, man.
Definitely. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for listening to the Millionaire Journey podcast. Please rate, like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share with somebody you think would enjoy listening.